I'd like to thank this community for opening your doors to the Zen group I've been hosting and allowing us to share our practice in this community. The open-minded nature of UUs in rejecting dogma and adopting these 7 intertwined principles fosters a community where we can share our different paths and help in our spiritual growth. So here's a little story that I'd like to tell you real quick. A Zen master comes up to a hot dog vendor. And so a Zen master comes up to a hot dog vendor and asks to buy a hot dog. And the vendor says, "What would you like on it?" And the Zen master says, "Make me one with everything." So, actually this joke is a little flawed. Because oneness isn't something that can be made. It's the inherent nature of everything. And it exists in this interdependent web. So today, I want to focus on the 7th UU principle and what it means to me as a Buddhist. It reads, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Often, we think of interdependence just in relation to other people, but really this interdependence is universal. It involves everything. It involves trees, stones, enemies, stars, black holes. So maybe we could actually say that this interdependence is the universe. And sometimes we can think of interdependence also as a chain, but I kind of don't like that analogy because a chain is linear, and our interdependence reaches out in all directions like a web. When a spider's on a web and something happens on the web, no matter where he is, he feels it. And it would be even better if I could find an example of a 3 or 4 dimensional web. In Buddhism, this concept of interconnection or interdependence is clearly found in the teaching of dependent origination or dependent arising. And really, this just means that nothing exists independently of anything or everything else. And the Buddha also tells us that nothing exists independent of anything. And the Buddha also tells us that nothing comes into being by a single cause. And if we look at things, we can see that this is true. And there's a 2nd century saint and reformer whose name was Nagarjuna, and he also taught dependent origination as the Buddha did. And when he taught it, Buddhism was starting to change and take on different false concepts. And in his teaching, he prevented the arising of several cults. And so today we find in Buddhism that all schools of Buddhism teach dependent origination. Nagarjuna tells us enlightenment is to know dependent origination, which is the true reality. And I don't believe that when he said this, he meant an intellectual understanding, but I think he meant an experiential understanding that really affects our lives. So in searching for material, I found this quote by Reverend Koshin Schomburg that helps us to see the importance of this teaching. This quote's kind of long, but it says, "The teaching of dependent origination is a practical exposition of the first 2 of the Buddha's 4 Noble Truths. Suffering is intrinsic to existence, the first Noble Truth, and the ultimate cause of all suffering is craving based in ignorance of the true reality, the second Noble Truth." And I like to say that this true reality is our dependent origination, or our place in this interconnected, interdependent web. The teaching of dependent origination looks at the flow of our life in terms of its origins in confusion, inherited from past existences, the perpetuation of that confusion in this present life, and the possible continuation of confusion into future existences. Only when craving and ignorance cease will the rolling wheel of suffering stop. This picture of worldly existence exemplifies the Buddhist teaching that all our experience is impermanent, that no transitory experience can satisfy the deepest longing of our heart, the deeper meaning of dukkha, and that no matter how hard we try, we will never find an enduring refuge within transitory experience. These are three ways of looking at the one flow of life. So, as Reverend Koshin points out, our dukkha, our suffering, is rooted in craving and it's based on ignorance of true reality. And this true reality, once again, is our interdependent web. And most of us have had brief moments of feeling this deep connectedness. Maybe we were sitting in the forest just looking out over a valley, or maybe we were sitting in a park and just listening to the birds sing. So we know this enlightenment isn't just something for Buddhas or Buddhists. It's for all of us to share in. And we see that the suffering or spiritual disease is rooted in seeing ourselves as separate. And that liberation is found in knowing our connectedness. This idea is beautifully expressed in the Genjo Koan, a writing by 13th century Zen master Dogen Zenji. He says, driving ourselves to practice and experience millions of things and phenomena is delusion. When millions of things and phenomena actively practice and experience ourselves, that is realization. For me, this means that when we live from interdependence, when we live from our relationship, when we live as the universe manifesting here in the present, we're walking on the ground of liberation, a place of selflessness. Master Dogen goes on to say, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. When actualized by myriad things, your body and mind, as well as the body and mind of others, drop away, and no trace of realization remains, and this no trace continues endlessly. So to put it another way, we may think of a watch. A watch depends on all of its parts being put together in a certain way. When you take the watch apart, it's no longer a part. It's no longer a watch. And when you look at the pile of parts from this watch, there's nothing in that pile of parts that you can call watchness. And it's the same with us. And when we look at ourselves as no self, the idea of not having a soul or an essence may seem a little scary at first, but in reality, it's liberating. Because of our independence, our borders blur. We no longer stop at our skin, but we continue out, and we include the whole universe. Another concept related to interdependence is impermanence. There is no thing that escapes change, and also there is no thing that lasts forever. So when we look closely, again, we can see this truth. And not only does everything change, but everything is always changing. And this too might seem scary to us, but in this interdependent web, it's what has made all this possible. Everything we see here, all that we are, it is only possible with something changing. We can also look at interdependence and morality. Zen master and UU minister James Ishmael Ford speaks of the seventh principle and its direct relationship with the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In the Diamond Sutra, when the Buddha spoke of bodhisattvas, or enlightened beings, in the act of giving, he said they should do so without the thought of a self or even without the thought of a receiver. So, when we live from a place of relationship, from a place of interdependence, our compassion becomes just what we do selflessly. Our service is given without thought of reward. A past member of your congregation, Randy Knoll, described a bodhisattva like this. He said, "I always think of a bodhisattva as the hand that automatically reaches down to comfort the foot and that steps on a thorn. No thought of self or reward, just doing what needs to be done to reduce suffering." So, when we see our actions don't belong to us, but to the entire cosmos, it deepens the extent of our responsibility to all existence. And it also helps us to a truer understanding of what karma means. So we've looked at interdependence in a few ways and how it can direct our lives. We've seen that it's universal, that it includes everything. And we've seen how it relates to the doctrines or concepts of emptiness, of no self, and also of impermanence. And that the connectedness isn't something that we find outside of ourselves, but it's here for everybody, always. It's our true reality. So, in our Zen practice, we use meditation to help us look deeply and see our true reality, our true nature, and our interdependence. So I'd like to demonstrate and show you how we do this meditation now. So. So I won't make you sit all on the floor. I'll show you how to do it in a chair. So sometimes in a chair, just in case this is something you're interested in, like right now, when we sit in a chair, first off, our meditation is a body and mind practice. So it's the interdependence of a body and mind, because you don't have one without the other. So we like to do our practice with the best posture we can attain. And when we sit in a chair, depending on our body, it's best when our legs slope downhill a little bit. So sometimes if you want to do this at home or whatever, you might use a cushion. Or if you're really short, you might want a cushion to put your feet on. So anyways, so our meditation involves breathing. And we use our breathing to help us stay focused in the present. And it's about awakening. And so we keep all our senses active. When we meditate with our eyes open. We keep our gaze towards the ground, maybe out of focus, but meditate with our eyes open. And when the Zen Buddhists meditate, they hold their hands their left hand on the right palm, and their thumbs touching. And this is called a cosmic mudra. So you don't have to do that today. You can, when you do the meditation, you can just hold your hands in your lap, or you can do this. And they say it's best to hold it to your navel, but I just let it fall on my lap. And so the practice that we do is we get our body all aligned. We like to sit in a good posture. When you are sitting in a chair, it's best to move forward and not use the back of the chair. Just have a good posture, holding with your back up straight, with your neck straight, and your ears over your shoulders, and the eyes cast down. And what we do when we get in this good posture is we use a breath counting method that helps us stay focused on our breathing. And we just breathe naturally, and we just watch the in-breath come in. And then as the out-breath goes out, we just count 1. And then we take another breath. And then on the out-breath, 2. We just count to 10. And often you'll find that when you're meditating like this, you don't actually count to 10 very often. So what we do is we notice what's going on with our mind. And we just come back and say, oh, I'm thinking about work tomorrow, or what I should have said to that person. And then we just forgive ourselves, and we just come back to our breathing and start over with 1 and just work our way back to 10. And then when we're done, we can come back to 1 again. So, shall we try that? I'm going to ring the bell 3 times. And like I said, if possible, you might want to try moving up in your chair with the posture. Start with 3 rings, and then we'll end with a ring. So, when we do our meditation practice like that on Tuesdays, we do it for two 25-minute periods. So, you guys got off easy today. But we do break it up into 2 periods with a period of walking meditation. So, anyways, I hope that my talk today will encourage you to live more living through this interdependent web, realizing this web, and I hope that we'll take a deeper look at this 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. And I thank you, and be well.
Thank you, Carl, for explaining some very complex ideas. You'll now turn to the Teal hymnal, number 1064, The Blue Boat Home. Thank you. In the next building, we have food and drink, and we invite you all to come and have some food with us and sit and get to know each other better. Closing words, we have this Buddhist saying, "Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence, hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp."